Hey guys, Saint here, and I know I've been gone for the last couple of weeks, and I know that the uploads have kind of been a bit on a halt recently. You know, it's been really hard to want to make content for Destiny at the moment due to, you know, just a general lack of content to play, lack of excitement in playlists. The meta is really bad for PvP playlists right now. I think there are just a number of issues in my eyes, and I think a lot of people in the community kind of can feel my pain with this. So this video is gonna be all about kind of going over Beyond Light, kind of going over the content that Bungie thought was acceptable to release to us, you know, at the amount of money that they charge for the content. You know, we're gonna talk about Stasis, we're gonna talk about weapon balancing, we're gonna talk about just a lot of different focal points within the community. I think a lot of this is gonna be a hot take, a lot of this is gonna be a personal input in my own opinion, but I think that I think the way I feel is the way a lot of the community feels. So if you know, if anything that I talk about in this video resonates with you and you agree with you know the ideas that I have about, you know, what is happening, what's the future of, you know, Destiny look like, what is, you know, the meta of PvP look like, how does Stasis interact with everything else in the game, how does, you know, how does it affect the game, you know, just everything. Leave your information down in the comments section, you know, about this kind of stuff. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with it. I think the first topic of interest that I want to enter into here is kind of just going over the content that came out with Beyond Light, and I want to talk about the Destiny content vault as well, and just how stupid, you know, really honestly stupid of an idea it was to remove the amount of content that they thought would be acceptable and only giving us a small portion in return. So for example, destinations, we all know, you know, they removed Mercury, Mars, Titan, Io, the farm, you know, the Leviathan areas are gone, you know, so a lot of the activities that were associated with those locations are now gone as well. You can no longer patrol those zones, etc., etc. You know, there's issues there, you know, there's no more campaign missions, there's no more raids in those positions for those locations. It's a bit stupid, I think. I mean, I don't understand why they thought it was acceptable to remove this much. I mean, I guess I can understand it, the game being a certain file size, you know, it can be a bit of an issue, but the way they marketed Beyond Light, it being such a massive expansion, and, you know, we're gonna get Europa, it's gonna be the biggest place we've ever been to and all this stuff, and it turns out the Europa honestly was very small in comparison. You know, what else, they ended up changing, you know, for the, you know, the content vault, they ended up removing a bunch of, you know, maps for PvP. You know, I'm a very big PvP player myself. They removed 11 maps. Man, you know, it's funny, when I went to do the homework on this, I thought it was only like 5 or 6 PvP maps they removed from the playlist. No, it's 11 maps. That's crazy, without introducing any new ones, but we'll get into that. So as well, you know, they also remove a bunch of strikes. You know, the Garden Ward's gone, the Tree of Probabilities is gone, Savathun's Song is gone. You know, there's a lot of strikes that are gone now. There are vendors that are no longer a part of the game, such as a Data 1, Benedict 66, Warner 9940, Anna Bray, Sloan, Ashermere, etc., etc. I don't have a problem with Bungie wanting to remove content. I think my biggest issue with what they decided to do was market Beyond Light as an expansion like it was on some level of Taken King from Destiny 1. They really did put out this feeling that we were going to get a massive expansion. There was going to be a ton of new loot to chase, a ton of stuff that's going to be viable to want to use. There's going to be a ton of replayability, aside from the fact that they just got done removing, in my opinion, I feel like they removed 60% of the video game, like if not more. Like they took out a ridiculous amount, and not to mention, right, that's just the Destiny content vault, right? You know, and then you talk about sunsetting of weapons, you know, for Crucible, right? And for PvE content that you can no longer use, right? If you look at the weapon pool of this game right now, there is probably no more than maybe anywhere from 40 to 60 weapons that are not sunset. Maybe I might be a little bit wrong in those numbers. It might be even less, honestly, I'm not sure. But I think that's ridiculous, because I feel like over half of the weapons that are in the game right now are sunset. You can't use them anymore. That's crazy. Like, why, who in their right mind thought that was going to be intelligent, right? Because, you know, I was like, okay, well, they're going to remove a bunch of content. They're going to remove, you know, strikes, raids, PvP maps, gambit maps, etc., etc. You know, they're gonna go ahead and, you know, toss all these other weapons on sunset. They're no longer going to be usable. No problem. Beyond Light's coming. There's going to be a ton of new stuff coming, right? They kept advertising this like this, and they kept telling everybody this, but then Beyond Light comes out. Okay, so Beyond Light content wise, let's take a look at what did we get out of Beyond Light, right? Out of weapons. Okay, so we got, now these are all the weapons, including the raid weapons, as well. I'm not going to count the seasonal weapons because Season of the Hunt is its own deal, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But just weapons that are tied to Beyond Light, we have Arctic Haze, we have Coriolis Force, we have the Heritage Shotgun, we have the Bone Chiller Shotgun, we have the Trusty Scout Rifle, we have the Stars and Shadow Pulse Rifle, Posterity Hand Cannon, the Biting Winds Bow, the Bequist Sword, the Crowd Pleaser Grenade Launcher, the Sub-Zero Salvo, the Thermal Erosion, the Xenoclass No. 4 Shotgun, and the Commemoration. That's it. You're telling me that an expansion at the base price tag of $40, you are only getting, what, 10 weapons? 10 to 15 weapons? That's it? Man, I'm like frustrated with that. Like, how is that acceptable? You know, that's a problem for me. Like, I don't even know what to say about it, honestly. And then if you want to go ahead and talk about the Season of the Hunt weapons that got added to this, you know, you have Royal Chase, Friction Fire, Deafening Whisper, Glacioclasm, the Blast Batu, and the Corsair's Wrath. Okay, so maybe, you know, maybe 20 weapons, you know, Beyond Light plus the season, right? Minus all the 50 to 60 weapons they sat there and removed and deleted and got rid of because they deemed them no longer necessary, etc., etc. I think that's stupid. I think it's really stupid. I think what Bungie has done is very bad. It's bad. Like, a lot of these weapons people don't even use because of the way the meta is for PvE and PvP. And another issue that I have with this game that I think a lot of people don't actually know is Destiny runs on the Halo Reach engine. It runs on an engine from 2010. Now, I wouldn't have such a big problem with that if it didn't cause so many massive limitations for the video game, right? And part of the reason why a lot of these, you know, weapons get sunset and they get taken out of the game, and, you know, things aren't so balanced, and whenever something for PvP gets buffed, something to PvE gets ruined, you know, is because they don't have two separate damage values and number values between both the PvE and PvP world, because the engine basically just cannot handle it because it's old. It's pretty simple. There really is no other way to put that. So, you know, that being said, how does this stuff affect the future of the game? How does this stuff affect the future of the community? You know, I think this stuff, you know, there are so many different topics that I could throw inside of this video that I personally find to be a massive problem. The fact that Beyond Light came with no PvP maps, came with poor weapon balancing, came with, it felt like, no game testing at all for Stasis, you know, and they kind of just had to throw out a massive nerf really fast to try to get it somewhat, you know, cooled down, but it's still utterly atrocious. You still can't play a PvP match without being shatter dove on, you know, because you're being hit at, you know, 10 meters plus from a shatter dive, which I know that's coming. Thank God, you know, they're going to address that. They did recently throw that up on Twitter, that they're going to be, you know, looking at fine tuning that specifically inside of Stasis inside of the game. But that's not the only Stasis problem we have in the game, though. But other things that I still have a massive issue with inside of this is the fact that there still is no anti-cheat for PvP either. You know, they talked in a couple of TWABs ago, you know, that they're going to start, you know, putting out, you know, an anti-cheat that's SMS capable. So basically you would have your phone number attached to your account, and you would have to have a verified account to be able to play, you know, certain playable content inside of the game. It's PvP related, so that cheaters aren't being, you know, cheaters aren't as populated, you know, as they are right now, because it's still crazy the amount of cheaters that I play inside of trials, inside of even a regular control match is pretty nuts. But, you know, there's that. There's still a lot of issues with weapon balancing, most notably the fact that the meta circulates around max mobility builds with shotguns. Now, shotguns are basically the only thing you can really use because sniper rifles Sniper rifles are still usable, but I'm going to tell you that they do not feel anything like they did last season. Last season, you had a lot more capability with the fact that you had better target acquisition, you had less flinch value, you had, basically the aim assist just felt a lot better and it was a lot more usable. Now you have to use a shotgun or you're basically going to get destroyed. And if you don't have a felwinter, which the fact that they don't even allow you to access that, but, anymore is ridiculous. Thank God that weapon is going to be sunset next month. That's going to be a good thing for the game, I think, overall. But moving on from there, we have another thing for me is why is it that Bungie struggles so hard to create good seasonal content? I really don't understand this. This is their pride and joy for the year of what content they're going to bring to the game while they're working on a massive expansion in the fall like they do each year, right? Why is it that only season 9 is the only season, right, which was Season of Opulence, the only season that was a banger? It was the only one that offered a bunch of very, very useful loot. The replayability was there. It was very fun to grind. It was fun to play. The weapons, like I said, were very, very useful. But Bungie didn't even create that. They didn't even make that season. Joe made that season. If it wasn't for that man, we never would have enjoyed that content. I don't understand why it is that, the original company cannot manufacture this quality of content anymore, and it just doesn't feel like it. This is another thought that I have had, with this as well that I think a lot of people don't know, but which I think Bungie should be a lot more open about, is the fact that you guys got to remember Bungie is working on a brand new IP in the background, and it has been in progress for multiple years at this point, and we all know the title's name is Matter. We don't know anything about the game, but the thing I'm concerned about here is how many people from their development studio with 1,000 employees, how many of those people actually work on Destiny and how many of those actual people work on their new IP? Now, I have no problem with them making a new video game, but I just want them to be so, a little bit more upfront about what's going on. Hey guys, we have 80% of our employees working on our new IP and only 20% of them are working on Destiny now. Like something along those lines or something along a little bit more information on what's going on with that would be helpful. Because as a player and as a member of the community, as someone that's played this game for 6 years, it feels like Bungie doesn't listen to anything we have to say anymore. It just doesn't feel like it. So it's kind of sad that the only good content that gets created is by a third party, people that can come in as a third party to be able to make this content, and I'm grateful for it, which, as a matter of fact, they just rehired Joe to put in work for the next season that we're going to experience. The only season that you can maybe argue that Bungie made that was somewhat good was season 11, but that's only good to a certain extent. It definitely wasn't a banger. It was not season 9. So I think, year over year, I think Destiny, I don't know how to put this real simply. I feel like you can't just make more Destiny and expect it to be enough anymore. It doesn't work like that anymore. You can't just make more raids, make more strikes, make more content like that and just think that it's going to be enough anymore. It doesn't work like that anymore. I think the community requires more. I think I feel like that's just the way it is. There is no other way to put it. So I'm really worried, about the future of this new IP, even that if Luke Smith is being this poor of a manager to his team and they're not putting out quality enough content and they're not working well enough together to make good content, I'm worried about their new IP. Does that mean that this new IP is going to be ass? You know what I mean? If the content for Destiny is this dry and this unplayable or unreplayable, it's not unplayable, it's just unreplayable, that makes me worried about the future. For Bungie as a whole. And guys, I want to see Bungie succeed, man. I've been a fan of Bungie's work, obviously since, Halo Combat Evolved first came out, talking a long time ago at this point. But, aside from that, I just hope Bungie has a better future planned out. And I hope that the future of the game is being taken a little bit more seriously. And I think that I'm worried about the content and the future of this game and the community that we have built around it. So I'm going to leave that there. Those are kind of just my opinions on that. But moving into the next topic, I want to talk about Stasis for a minute. So this one is kind of hard to talk about because it's very controversial. Everybody's got their own preference on what's overpowered, what isn't overpowered, I feel like. And in my opinion, I feel like Stasis was beyond undertested. Probably the most undertested thing to date that's ever hit the Destiny game game hands down, no question. And like, I understand the fact that, you know, they have to create new subclasses, you know, that are going to outperform the rest of the subclasses to sell copies of the game and create more excitement around the game. Like, I completely understand from a business standpoint, that makes perfect sense, and I get it. However, making it to the point where it is a game where it's literally game breaking, that's just so much of a problem for me. Like, it feels like they didn't even like play test it. Like, there's no way in their right mind that when Stasis first hit Destiny, right, it got nerfed in what, 3 days, 4 days? It got nerfed really, really fast, right? And it got a big nerf really fast. The amount of freeze time, all of that stuff. There's no way in hell that their playtesters that they pay money to tested this and went, oh yeah, that's balanced. Oh yeah, that's fair. Oh yeah, it's okay. There's no way. Here's a suggestion, and I don't know how far this idea will go, and I think a lot of PC players, console, I don't think this is something that's doable, but PC, I think it's doable. Why is it that Destiny does not offer a test server? Why do they not roll out something like this that's a little bit more community based? They say, hey guys, we have this new thing. Here's the changes. Go check it out. Go play it. Tweet at us. You know, submit a file report, you know, on there, because most of those test servers have a report screen that you can sit there and fill out a document to send to the game developers. Why does that not freaking exist? Why is it that every time we have to take something into the actual game and break and ruin the game and then have to sit here and go through this conversation like I'm sitting here right now going over all of this stuff? It's crazy, man. I don't know. So, you know, moving on from that, you know, why is it that now you can't really use any other, you know, class setups inside of this game anymore, because Stasis is just so powerful, you know, from the advantages of a Titan being able to move at Mach 10 to Hunters being able to straight up multi-kill just from slamming on the freaking ground, you know, and then Warlocks, I think Warlocks got a little bit of the short end of the stick to an extent. Having crazy range on the freeze melee is pretty good. It's pretty nice. Sometimes it's a little strong, but it's not overpowering. You know, the freezing rifts, you know, their abilities aren't as potent as the other two classes, I think. But I think all in all, I still think there needs to be a nerf into some of the mods as well. I think that's another issue that a lot of people overlook. There's a lot of issues with mods on Stasis, like Whisper of Fissures needs to get nerfed, which is the shatter damage from the explosion of the crystals. You know, it's pretty crazy, man. And I think that a lot of the community can resonate with what I just said about all of that, because, you know, related to Stasis, because everybody has experienced this. And I think there's enough people that are quitting the game right now over Stasis, over that one thing, because there's so much of a problem with it. Like, it's crazy. It's overwhelming, actually. So, like I said, I know they tweeted out recently, and they've continued to do this for a little while now, but we'll just see what they decide to do. Now, let's talk about weapon balancing for just a short minute. I already went over the fact that snipers have issues, you know, between flinch and aim assist values, etc. Why is it that the only way you can enjoy this game anymore in a PvP setting is by using the quote-unquote meta weapons? So if you don't use the quote-unquote meta builds and the meta weapons, you're basically useless. So it's almost impossible to have fun inside of the playlists, because everything's revolving around 120 hand cannons now. Everything's revolving around max range builds, getting 2-tapped, max mobility. It's just crazy. Like, I could sit here and name a ridiculous amount of things with the weapon balancing. So, you know what? Like, the simple thing here is I just think Luke Smith really needs to rethink how he's managing this team. I think he needs to rethink how they're approaching their community. I think they need to rethink their strategies with game testing and their whole development process as an entire whole, honestly. So, you know, aside from this game being super dry on content right now, Beyond Light was super dry. It was weak. I didn't like it. It was great for about, you know, 2 weeks to 3 weeks, and then I hit the wall, and I've got about 600 to 700 hours into Beyond Light currently. You know, it's hard, man. It's hard. I'm not in a good place, and I don't really have anything positive to say about the game in its current state. I don't. I really hope that Joe is able to forget me. I do not remember the gentleman's last name. But I'm hoping that him and his team are able to make a banger season. I know there's supposed to be like 15 new ritual weapons, new strikes, and new content coming next season. But again, it goes back to the same thing of the fact that I do not like the fact that the only way you're going to get the content you want to watch or you want to play is from a third-party development team. I'm worried about Bungie, guys. I'm worried about the future. I think Bungie has already given up on Destiny. I think to an extent, I don't think they've just full blown, gave up, but I think that to an extent, it feels like they either don't give a shit what us as the community feel or what we think is best for the game. They no longer care about our feedback. It feels like it's either that or they just don't care about the game anymore because they're too busy working on something new. So I'm not really quite sure what to say or what to feel about what's going on with the game in the current state, but this is kind of just my hot take on Beyond Light, the very little content, the weapon balancing to PvP, the Destiny content, all the weapons that have been taken out of the game that are no longer useful, to strikes, to Gambit maps, to PvP maps, to etc, etc, etc. I could go on forever. Guys, I really, really want feedback. I know this is a long video, and if you listen to this all the way to this point, thank you so much for listening to my rants, but I really want people's feedback. I think more and more people in the community, like Astacross, Cacus, Mtash, Sir Demetrius, Glad, Swetsicle, a lot of these huge channels are not even playing this game anymore. A lot of them, their content has slowed down to nothing. A lot of them have actually made videos just like what I'm making right now. This is a long one, but I think a lot of people feel like I do right now, and they're just not happy with the state of the game, and they're not happy with the direction Bungie is deciding to move forward. So please leave me feedback down in the comment section about, everything I said. If you agree, if you disagree, let's have a discussion. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching today's video and listening to this, and I will see you guys in the next one.